Hello, listeners, and welcome to a brand new episode of Second Take Cinema. A grand old episode for me, because today we're giving a second take to one of my legitimately favourite movies of all time. It's time for a second take on 1992's Army of Darkness. That's right, today we are reviewing a film from a man who is one of, if not my favourite director. It's one of my favourite films. I've seen it hundreds of times, shown it to Rory. We are talking
I've
Army.
seen it twice from you now.
You've seen it twice from me. We are talking Army of Darkness, a.k.a. Evil Dead 3. Army of Darkness was released in 1992. It is a dark fantasy comedy horror film directed, co-written and co-edited by Sam Raimi, starring Mr. Bruce Campbell and Embeth Davidtz, who the following year went on to be in Schindler's List. Bit of a jump there, Army of Darkness to Schindler's List.
Very similar themes, though.
Yes, of course. It had a budget of $11 million and made $21.5 million.
Yes.
So it did double its budget, but it is still regarded largely as a commercial failure. Was very damaging to the career of Bruce Campbell, but has gone on to become a pop culture touchstone, including being referenced in things such as Duke Nukem.
Yep.
Various other movies and TV shows, and when Evil Dead media gets made these days, like Evil Dead video games, things like that, nearly all of the catchphrases people associate with Ash actually come from this film.
Yeah.
The only ones that don't are "Give Me Back My Hand" and when
Groovy.
he in Evil Dead 2, "I'll swallow your soul, I'll swallow your soul, swallow this."
Doesn't Groovy also predate this film?
Groovy's in all three of them, yeah. That is his catchphrase. He says groovy all the time.
Yeah.
Groovy.
Which influenced Earthworm Jim.
Yeah. Yes. Earthworm Jim. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film stands at 68%, with the critic consensus reading, "Some of the evil magic is gone as this trilogy capper dispenses with most of the scares, but Bruce Campbell's hammy charm and Sam Raimi's homage to classic visual effects makes for a fun enough adventure." Roger Ebert gave the film 2 out of 4 stars and wrote, "The movie isn't as funny or as entertaining as Evil Dead 2, however, maybe because the comic approach seems recycled." In a review for the New York Times, Janet Maslin wrote that Mr. Campbell's manly, mock-heroic posturing is perfectly in keeping with the director's droll outlook. Desson Howe, in a review for the Washington Post, praised the film's style. Bill Pope's cinematography is gymnastic and appropriately frenetic. The visual and makeup effects from artist-technicians William Messer, Tony Gardner, and others are incredibly imaginative. However, Entertainment Weekly gave the film a C+ rating and wrote, "This spoofy cast of thousands looks a little too much like a crew of bland Hollywood extras. By the time Army of Darkness turns into a retread of Jason and the Argonauts, featuring an army of fighting skeletons, the film has fallen into a ditch between parody and spectacle."
Interesting.
Yeah. It's definitely a cult classic. It's one of those things that's beloved by by hardcore fans, and the general public basically don't remember that it ever exists.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever mentioned it to anyone in the general public, and they've been like, "Yes, I am aware of this film." And then you describe the film to them, and you usually get about as far as he has a chainsaw for a hand, and people check out.
I have to say, though, it might just be because you're calling it the wrong thing.
No.
Yes.
No.
Jamie. See, in Japan,
I'm
it's not
using
called
it
Army
by
of
its
Darkness.
American title. The Japanese title is stupid.
The Japanese title is probably the best title the film has got, which is Captain Supermarket.
No.
Captain Supermarket, Jamie.
That at least it has an actual Army of Darkness in it.
It has a supermarket.
Not in the European Cup.
That's true.
So,
But he mentions it. This is my boomstick, and then he
buy
tells
this
them
from S-Mart.
There you go.
You find this in the sporting goods section.
There you go. So that's why he's Captain Supermarket.
But before we move on to talk about this absolute gem of a movie that influenced me hugely, it's time to quiz Rory. So as you know, Rory, this is directed by one of my all-time favourite directors, Mr. Samuel Raimi.
Yes.
I thought it might be fun to see if you can work out the 10 highest grossing movies of Sam Raimi's career.
Oh, no.
Starting at 10 with the lowest. So this is the top 10. He's made more than 10 films.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm going to give you a hint. Despite being the thing he is most known for, none of the Evil Dead movies make the cut.
What, the top 10?
None of them are in the top 10.
That makes sense because they're not high-grossing films.
No, they are niche.
Yeah.
So, number 10 is a film I know you've seen. You have seen it. What do you think is the 10th highest grossing Sam Raimi film?
Oh, Christ, Quick and the Dead.
The Quick and the Dead is his 10th highest grossing movie. That was 2 weeks ago, Rory. 3 at the push. The Quick and the Dead grossed $18.6 million.
Right.
Up next, a film you may not have heard of, to be fair, but it stars Keanu Reeves. And it came out in 2000, I think.
Keanu Reeves, 2000.
It's a murder mystery. Directed by Sam Raimi.
For some reason, my brain keeps going to Secret Window, but that was Johnny Depp.
That was Johnny Depp.
Gift.
The Gift, yes. Grossing $44.5 million.
I've never heard of that one, though. I've seen a couple of, one called Replicas that he was in. I've seen a few, smaller known Keanu Reeves productions, but, yeah, not heard of that one.
Okay, the last one, so this is 8, and this is the last one that is difficult to guess, in my opinion.
Right.
Because I had no idea Sam Raimi made this.
Oh.
No idea.
And you're a fan.
Yeah. Honestly, much like guessing Zack Snyder did Owls of Gahul,
This is that
I
level.
could guess all day and not get this. This is a Kevin Costner baseball movie. And it's not Field of Dreams.
Oh, then I don't know.
For the Love of the Game, 1999, $46.1 million.
The only one I knew Kevin Costner did was Field of Dreams. Jesus.
In number 7, we have he did this in 1990.
Yep.
It is a quasi-superhero movie, but it is not based on Marvel or DC. I think it's an original hero he created, and it's not like in...
Darkman.
It is Darkman, well done. $48.8 million.
Liam Neeson, wasn't it?
Liam Neeson and Francis McDormand. Now, everything up to now has been below 50 million, right?
Right.
We're now jumping, for number 6, to $90.8 million.
Wow.
It is a horror movie. He made it in the late 2000s. I think it was 2008.
Right.
It's about a woman who gets a gypsy curse put on her. And it features Justin Long in the film. And our mutual...
Not Cabin in the Woods.
No.
House on the Left.
No, that's way older. That's the 70s.
Oh.
It is a film you've
That's
heard
Last House on the Left.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's a film you've heard me say the title of. And our mutual friend Luke, he went to the cinema to see this, and according to Joe, he sat with his face in his hands the entire time, which is hilarious because this is not a scary movie. It's more of a horror comedy.
Oh, for some reason I've got the word hostel coming through my head.
That's Eli Roth.
Yeah. And
It
it's
is-
not a horror comedy, it's just a gore
No,
fest.
that's just, yeah.
Are
You ready?
you go on.
It's Drag Me to Hell.
I wasn't going to guess that.
Okay. We're going to jump even higher. So that was 90.8 million. This man has nothing if not huge gaps in his thing. This next film grossed $493.3 million.
How many are left overall?
5.
Right.
I know you haven't seen it, but we've spoken about it. And in 2013 it was, so I was close. It features appearances from Mila Kunis.
Right.
And Rachel Weisz. And Michelle Williams. And now noted, no one wants him in their lives anymore, James Franco. I would categorise it as a fantasy film.
No, the only one I can think of is the mock-up of The Room, and it's not that.
The Disaster Artist. Yeah, that's a good film. It's Oz the Great and Powerful.
Yeah, I don't know that film.
That's all right. So we're in the top 4. I'm going to give you a hint now. The next 4...
They're all superheroes.
Are all superhero
They're all
films.
Marvel.
They are all Marvel.
Yeah, it's going to be the 3 Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
But in what order?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you just want me to guess now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to imagine...
I think you will be surprised which one grossed the least, actually. Given their reputations and how fondly they're remembered.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Spider-Man 1, 2, 3, and then the top one is going to be Doctor Strange, just because of how big the superhero genre is.
You're close. You're not quite there.
Spider-Man 2 made the least?
The lowest grossing is Spider-Man 2.
That's the best regarded one.
I know.
I figured that Spider-Man 3 would be the highest grossing out of those 3.
Yeah.
Only because, even though it's not highly regarded, I know it did smash all the
Spider-Man
records.
3, yeah. So Spider-Man 1 smashed a load of records, and then Spider-Man 3 smashed those records.
Yeah.
So it went Spider-Man 2. And to be fair, it wasn't by a lot. It's very close. Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 3, and then at number 1, just last year, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which made $955.8 million. That's near enough $1 billion.
Yeah.
On DVD sales, that will cross $1 billion.
Yeah.
Now, I want to put something into perspective here, because here's a reason I love Sam Raimi, because he gives me hope as an indie filmmaker.
Okay.
I'm going to read you out what his other films made, so the ones that didn't make the top 10, in descending order.
What, so
from
lowest
most to the
highest?
very lowest. So these are the ones that didn't make the top 10. I'm going to start the one that was nearest the top 10. A Simple Plan in the late 90s. It's got what's his face in it. He's dead now. He's a very good actor. He's in True Lies. He's in Terminator and Predator and Alien. He's the only actor to be killed by all 3.
Yeah.
Bill. Not Bill Pullman, the one who's dead. Bill Pullman's still alive. Oh, I feel terrible that I can't remember his name. Paxton. Bill Paxton. This is a film he did with the Coen brothers.
Yep.
A Simple Plan made $16.3 million.
Right.
Army of Darkness made $11.5 million. Evil Dead 2, $5.9 million. Evil Dead 1, $2.89 million. Crime Wave, his lowest grossing movie. He made it between Evil Dead 1 and 2. Made it with the Coen brothers. It was written by the Coens before they were the Coens.
Yep.
It made $5,000. $5,000. That's all. Imagine
That
now.
is a failure.
Imagine today saying a film directed by Raimi, written by the Coens, only made $5,000.
Must have been a romance.
No, it's a crime. It's a
No,
crime
I'm
thing.
joking. I'm joking.
It basically, it's the reason Evil Dead 2 got made, because it destroyed Sam Raimi's career, and they were like, the only thing we will fund you is Evil Dead, because that's what you're known for. So he did Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
But just take inspiration, fellow filmmakers, that this is a man who went from, in the 80s, made $5,000. By 2002, and Spider-Man 1 was making $700 million and breaking records.
Jeez.
And by 2023 was making just shy of $1 billion. If that's not a reason to have hope,
Yeah.
I don't know what is. $5,000. I could not believe it when I read it.
Yeah, that's insane.
I was like, that must be a typo.
Yeah.
It must be.
Jesus.
$5,000. Fucking hell.
But if it only came out in 3 cinemas, it means that it didn't have much of a push by the distributor then.
No, it was a proper indie budget film.
Oh, it was an indie. Okay, fair enough.
His first studio movie was Army of Darkness, I think. Possibly Darkman. Darkman might have been a studio movie. Actually, yes, it was, because I remember reading, actually, the reason Army of Darkness got made was because Darkman actually did surprisingly well. The studio didn't think it would do as well as it did.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, what do you want to do next? And he obviously felt bad that Bruce Campbell's career wasn't getting off the ground. He went, I want to do an Evil Dead 3 with Bruce as the lead.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's good of him.
But anyway, well done, Rawstifer. We're now moving on after these commercials. So, Army of Darkness.
Yes.
I've seen this film. I bet you I've seen it 200 times. I've seen this film so often. Other than A Nightmare on Elm Street, this is probably the film I've seen the most. And to be honest, it's pretty close to A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I'm not sure which one I've seen the most often.
Sure.
I saw this. This was actually the first of the Evil Deads that I saw. It was playing on TV one day while I was off sick from school.
During the day?
Yeah, that probably tells you how not scary it is.
Yeah, it's really not a horror film, is it?
That it was just playing during the day. I love this movie. I can appreciate that it is an acquired taste, and it's something that you have to be... I would not expect to show this to an everyday, normal, average Marvel enjoyer.
Yeah.
And them like this. Because the things I like in this are the homages that Sam is making to older film genres, the creativity that has gone into making the film, and the passion that you can clearly feel coming through. And this is why I like Sam Raimi, because this is the case with every film of his I've ever seen. You can feel the love of filmmaking radiating off the screen. It's not a sensible plot. It's a really stupid plot.
It is stupid.
I like that it's unabashed with what it's trying to do, though.
Right.
And the reason I put this in here was not at all because I thought I was going to rethink it.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't think, maybe I won't like it.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'll finally watch it and be bored. Liked it more than I've ever liked it before.
Yeah.
Watching it again. It's so funny, in my opinion. And I just wanted an excuse to talk about it, quite frankly, because I feel like more people need to know about Army of Darkness.
Fair enough.
So for yourself, this is the second time. Both times you've seen this, it's been because of me.
Yep. So the first time was...
Eat it till you choke.
I can't remember if it was a year or 2 years ago you showed me this for the first time. I didn't really enjoy it then, being honest. So it's more of me having a second take on it. Yeah. I can understand. I fully 100% understand why you watched it this time and loved it more than ever. Army of Darkness is not a good film in terms of traditional narrative storytelling.
Yeah.
It is schlock, it is cheese, it is stupid. The second viewing of it was a lot more enjoyable. And I think if I was to watch it a third time, I'd find it even more enjoyable. It's one of those rare films that realistically isn't really that good on a first watch. But the more you watch it, the more the things stick to your head. The taglines come out, they become more quotable, you're waiting for them, you then anticipate them. You then quote them as they're coming out live the next time you watch them. And then the more and more you watch it, the more you cheer for it. And suddenly this film, which is kind of meh, bit shit, bit cheesy, a bit wank, suddenly it's your favourite film.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't gotten to that point with this film yet. As I say, it's only a second viewing.
Yeah.
But my enjoyment was more than double my first viewing.
Yeah.
My the reason I know that that's the case with this is there's very few times that that's occurred. One of those times is for me Street Fighter the movie.
Yeah.
Street Fighter the movie, you watch it once, you're like, what is this absolute garbage?
Yeah.
All the accents are wrong. The acting's terrible, apart from Raul Julia.
Yeah.
The fights are mostly okay at best. They're not great martial artists.
No.
It's cheesy. It is beyond terrible. Watch it a second time. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
Watch it a third time. Raul Julia is the damn MVP of all cinema. Watch it a fourth time.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's got some funny lines. Watch it a fifth time. And it's one of those... It's exactly the same for me as Army of Darkness, I think. I think those two are this weird, rare middle ground where they're terrible movies in a traditional sense.
Yeah.
But they are so fun and quotable that actually you don't really get to appreciate them on a first-time viewing.
Yeah.
You have to watch them again and again and again to properly enjoy them at their best.
Yeah.
Which is strange, because again, unlike something like a theatre play or something like that, the film doesn't change. It's as good or as shit as the first time you watch it. But your appreciation of it changes.
Yeah.
For some reason. I don't fully understand why. But yeah, watching it the second time, like when I watched it the first time and you were like, oh, you told me a bits about it before.
Yeah.
I watched it the first time, like, oh, he's got these lines like, this is my boomstick and all that. I watched it the first time, and he goes, this is my boomstick. I'm like, meh. And you're like, yes, it's a great line. I'm like, that's fucking bollocks. Watch it the second time, I'm like, yeah, this is my boomstick.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the same shit.
Yeah.
And you get, again, similar in Street Fighter. Raul Julia, it was Tuesday, is a fucking incredible line of cinema.
Yeah.
When you watch it the first time, you're like, that's a weird line. You watch it the second time, you're now quoting it.
Yeah.
All I want to do is create the perfect genetic soldier. Not for power, not for evil, but for good. Like, it's cheese, it's bollocks. There is no... You stick that in any other film and you're like, what have you done to ruin your film so badly? It's a bit of fun. So my impression of this is greatly appreciated, and I would actually like, not immediately, I think I need a little bit more time, but I would like to watch it a third time.
Yeah.
Which I did not expect, having not really enjoyed it the first time.
Yeah.
I know you notice more details in the second time as well. I noticed the Oldsmobile coming back more often. I forgot about it. Him manipulating it somehow into a death machine. Whereas before, that's ridiculous. How the fuck would he have done that? Second viewing, you just throw that away to the wind and go, it's a death machine.
I found it to be an excellent party film. I had a birthday party a few years back where I had a bunch of people come around who hadn't seen it before, and I just played it, and we literally just sat watching this film, laughing our heads off.
Yeah.
I think the reason it holds up, because there's plenty of films. We just did White Chicks recently, right?
Oh, God.
And we were like, well, White Chicks is just stupid.
Yeah.
Well, this is just stupid. What's the difference?
I don't think White Chicks improves on repeat viewing.
The difference is that, but what's the difference in the skill? And the difference is that Sam Raimi is a very talented filmmaker. And you can, even if the plot is ridiculous, you can see that in this film.
Yeah.
Comedy, bear in mind this is not ostensibly a comedy, whereas White Chicks is just an outright comedy.
Yep.
This is so deftly skilled at reviving an older style of comedy that especially nowadays feels refreshing because you don't see it. Now, all comedy in film is sarcasm or memes.
Yep.
This, one of my favourite jokes, it's so dumb, but this is Three Stooges-esque. This is Marx Brothers-esque even, maybe.
Yeah. I was going to compare it to Marx Brothers in a minute.
It's the bit where, after Ash has picked up the book and he's failed to say Klaatu Verata Nikto, and he's trying to get out of the graveyard, and all the tombstones, clearly styrofoam, but all the tombstones are like shooting into the air.
Yeah.
And the skeleton hands come up and grab him, they drag him out, and they're like smacking him and stuff. There's a bit where Bruce Campbell, he gets smacked a few times, he gets poked in the eye, and then he looks straight at the camera, dead ahead of him, and he goes, "Ah!" as if something's rushing at him. And instead of something coming at him, about 8 different skeleton hands all come from the side of the frame
Yeah, and punch
him all at the same time. And then they even add in a Tweety Bird Looney Tunes sound effect.
Yeah.
That sort of tweeting birds when someone's been knocked out thing.
Yeah.
That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, because it's so ridiculous.
And the misdirection works so well. It has been a long time since I've seen a comedy, especially a Hollywood comedy, where I didn't accurately know what all the punchlines were going to be before they were said.
Yeah.
Because comedy, much like Hollywood horror, has become so paint by numbers that if you've seen more than about 5 films in your life,
then you know what the punchlines are.
You can sit there going, right, this joke's coming here, he's going to fall down them stairs, this bit's going to be gross out.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be sarcastic.
Well, it's like if someone tells you a doctor joke.
Yeah.
Whatever the answer to the doctor or the knock joke is, it doesn't really matter. You know that it's going to end a particular style of way.
Yeah.
So even if the content changes, you know when the punchline is.
Yes.
Whereas you don't necessarily know that going in, certainly not on a first viewing of this film.
Hell no.
And actually, I think that's why it doesn't always... I think that's why, certainly in a modern framework, when you watch it now, as a first-time viewing, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there going, well, these punchlines are being missed left, right, and centre. Like, where's the punchline meant to be? And it's only after you've seen it once that you understand that the punchlines are at a different pace to what you expect from normal film.
And purely from a... I realise this part won't appeal to everyone. This appeals to me as a filmmaker and a pretentious wanker. It's so nice to watch a film where everything's practical. The skeletons are stop motion.
Yep.
The bit with the mini Ashers is done with rear projection.
Yeah.
Even the evil force is literally Sam Raimi with a camera on a block of wood running. Like, it's just so nice to look at a film and not go, hey, there's no CGI here.
Yeah, even though there's visual effects.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the visual effects, the one last thing I want to talk about in terms of its plot, pacing, storytelling, whatever. You mentioned Marx Brothers. I think the reason this works, and the same thing that I like about Street Fighter. Now, I'm not saying these are on the same level, because I love Marx Brothers as a classic piece of film. However... something you can't get... Marx Brothers isn't best when you watch it the first time either.
Right.
But I've had a lot more time to analyse those and can understand them a bit more because they're not cheesy schlock crap.
Yeah.
Like Street Fighter is, for example. The Marx Brothers works on multiple viewings. It works best that way. You will never catch all the jokes on the first viewing.
Yeah.
You could slow motion watch the Marx Brothers and you still wouldn't catch all the jokes. Because some of those jokes are... like, certainly, what's great about the Marx Brothers is the Groucho's jokes are quick fire. You get so many fired like a machine gun all at once. You'll never catch them all.
Yeah.
You have to watch it again, knowing some of the other jokes that he's telling to catch the ones you missed the first time. And some of them are really subtle. Some of them are really outlandish for their time. Then you've got Harpo, who is more akin to what the sort of comedy is in this. He's physical comedy. He's silent. So he's a silent movie, melodramatic clown.
Right.
So you've got that element in this film. Even though it's a talkie, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And then you've got Chico, who is a man so stupid that he's able to be more intelligent than Groucho when Groucho's trying to con him. Chico is the only man who can con the con man.
Right.
Because he's so dumb, he manipulates the con man without the con man realising it.
Right.
But in order to get the best out of all of those three working in unison, you have to watch each film several times to pick up on all the little bits you missed the first time. Army of Darkness has a very similar thing. And a lot of that comes from the visual effects as well.
Yeah.
But certainly the jokes that are told. You're talking about the graveyard scene. At first, when you first watch it, it's someone fucking about in a fake graveyard.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of very obvious slapstick.
Yeah.
When you watch it a second time, you appreciate the misdirection that you missed.
Yeah.
Because you were just going, why the fuck are we in such a shitty looking courtyard?
Yeah.
When you're watching it the second time, you're like, it's cheese, I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
Now you're not missing the misdirection.
Yeah.
You're going, oh, that was clever, actually. It's smarter than you gave it credit for the first time you watched it. And the visual effects do this, as you say, where there's no CGI, where they're having to use rear projection, where they're having to time things and manipulate elements of the screen to give you the impression that something else that normally nowadays you would just do with green screen or with CGI.
Yeah.
In order to give you that impression, they're having to be a lot smarter.
Yeah. Well, we compared it, didn't we, when we were watching it? So basically, there's a scene in this where Bruce Campbell's Ash gets trapped in a windmill overnight, and a bunch of mini versions of himself come out.
Yeah.
And the way that's done is he's filmed as the big Ash on rear projection, and then then he films himself in front of the screen.
Yeah.
And there's lots of really physical comedy here where he's like slipping in spilled curds. He accidentally like melts his face to the wooden thing.
Yep.
I will say this, there is no, I swear to God, and I mean this, there is no actor in Hollywood so good at doing comedy where they're beating themselves up as Bruce Campbell. Evil Dead 2 when his hand's possessed.
Yep.
And he's smashing stuff over his head. Army of Darkness, and then they even brought it back for he has a cameo in Doctor Strange 2, because of course he does, it's a Sam Raimi film, and he's an obnoxious hot dog seller who gets up in Doctor Strange's face, so Doctor Strange casts a spell on him that makes him beat himself up.
Right.
And it's literally, it is just him doing his Evil Dead 2 shtick, but Bruce Campbell's now 63 years old and still doing it.
Wow, that's great. I think the only actor I've ever seen who could try and match it, and I'm not sure he completely matches it, is Jim Carrey. And in Liar Liar...
Jim Carrey can definitely match the movements. I fully believe that.
You've not seen Liar Liar yet. He beats himself up in the toilet.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest he gets to Ash,
Yeah.
and I would say it's not the same.
No, because Bruce Campbell, he's also going crazy while he's doing it.
Yeah.
When he's doing stuff like in Evil Dead 2 when he's cutting his own hand off, and it should be horrifying, and he should be like, but he's just like, who's laughing now? And he does that here when one of them jumps down his throat and he drinks boiling water out of a kettle.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say about this, which I actually forgot what my original point was it. We then, while we were watching it, we compared this to Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes.
Which has a scene where Paul Rudd is attacked by about 30 animated mini Stay Puft Marshmallow Men.
Yeah. They're all CGI.
They're all CGI, and they barely interact with him.
There's one that interacts with him, and
one bites his finger.
Yeah. And then, no, I think one climbs at him in the car at the end, but it's very brief because they then quickly cut to the next...
No, it's the big gargoyle dog that jumps at him in the car.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because that's what the scene cuts on.
Yeah.
And then when we next see
you're
Paul
right.
Rudd, he's been possessed by the dog.
Yeah, so mostly it's one bites his finger, which is just him shaking his hand, and they add it in CGI.
And that film was made 30 years after.
And it had all the benefits of, like, bear in mind, that had the big Hollywood budget that this didn't have.
Yeah.
It had
All the advances in
CGI,
technology.
green screen. You could do anything you wanted to have those. But all you get a lot of the Stay Puft Marshmallow doing basically buggering about. But it's all independent of any actual actors.
The one that's so impressive in this, and again, this is something I only appreciated this time, because it's such a silly little thing. And I'm assuming it's just the timing, because the only way they could have done it is with the rear projection. The way he kills one of the little Ashes is the little Ash is hiding behind a pile of logs.
Right.
And Big Ash is laying there. I think he's just hit his head on the pipe. And he realises that the little Ash is there, and he goes... and then elbows the log, so the log hits the little Ash, who falls into the fire pit. That's amazing. Because you've got Big Ash knocking what I'm assuming that's on the rear projection as well, is the log.
Yeah.
But then the little Ash has to time perfectly the impact.
Yeah. And
fall at the right time. Otherwise, that would look so terrible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, that whole sequence has to be very meticulously timed.
Yeah, I'd love to know, actually, how long the windmill sequence took to film. I'd love to know that.
Because it's kind of weird as well, because the windmill sequence doesn't really do anything for the rest of the film, though it does lead to the creation of the
Evil
villainous Ash.
That is the only. That's the only
yeah.
plot relevant thing it does.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's just like, well, we've got to pad out the runtime. Yeah. Let's just do Evil Dead 2 again inside a windmill.
And fair play, this is Sam Raimi really like throwing a bone to his friend Bruce.
Yeah.
Like, not only to say, hey, come be the lead in my first big studio film, but also be the villain as well.
Yeah,
so
play.
You're taking all of the glory roles.
Yeah.
And that bit, it's obviously stop motion, but it's so cool. You know when they're running down the hill and they're still sort of conjoined?
Yeah.
But in each shot, they're further and further apart from each other.
Which is ironically something they do in the new when they split in the bi-regeneration in Doctor Who.
Yeah, except that was CGI.
Yeah.
This was this creepy stop motion effect.
Yeah.
And then when they separated and he's like, I'm bad, Ash, and you're good, Ash. You're a goody two-shoes. And he just sticks the shotgun right under his nose and just goes, and bad Ash just goes, oh? Like he's fucking Tim Allen.
Yeah.
And he just goes, I ain't that good.
Yeah.
It's so...
What a line.
Yeah, I love it. And something that I appreciate about it now, and about Evil Dead as a whole, that I'm not going to suck Sam Raimi's dick and say he definitely planned this. I think it's more just a nice coincidence. Is I think looking back on these films, especially Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, fair enough, Evil Dead 1, not so much. I know you haven't seen that one yet, but Ash is much more of just a straightforward, I'm trapped in this situation character. I think, especially Army of Darkness, in this modern, postmodern era that we're living in now, where everything's meta, and everything's about subversion and things like that, it makes Army of Darkness look smarter than it probably is, because Ash looks like he is a deconstruction of the action hero stereotype.
Oh,
he's a square-jawed American white guy with a thick head of hair, and he's got that real American accent, and he's very, cool, quote unquote. But he's a fucking moron, and he has to be coerced into everything he wants to do. He doesn't want to go look for the book.
No.
And when he agrees to go look for the book, and the wise man's like, you must say the words, and he's like, yeah, I got it. You know straight away you don't got it. You know, even the first time I watched it as a child, I was like, he's going to turn up, get this book, and not say those words.
Yeah.
Like, he's not got this at all.
It did make me pause though when he goes, what's it, Klaatu Varadan
Nikto.
And he's like, it's an N-word. I'm like, don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, because necktie, nectar.
Yeah, no, oh,
definitely an N-word.
Yeah.
Definitely an N-word.
Yeah, and you're like, dude, don't say the N-word.
That sort of mean humour has never been Sam Raimi's style, luckily.
Yeah.
In terms of... So I think this is a legitimately great movie. I legitimately love it. It's one of my top 10.
Okay.
I recognise that if I was to look at this academically, in terms of, like, 3-act structure or 5-act structure even, it don't really have that.
It kind of throws you straight in with no...
Things just kind of happen, and the entire last hour is a siege.
Yeah, there's no real hero's journey for Ash either, because he doesn't learn from his mistakes that much.
No, he doesn't.
And I know that's part of the character, but normally the hero's journey would be he would go from A to B to C, and in that process he would learn and mature and, get something valuable out of the That doesn't happen.
No, not at all. I mean, he even turns round and... Embith Davis, who he has relations with early in the film.
Yeah.
Sheila, someone in medieval England called Sheila.
Yeah.
She gets taken by the Deadites and turned into the queen for Evil Ash.
Yeah.
And when she comes back, I love this line. When she comes back and she's trying to stab him with that harpoon, and she's like, you found me beautiful once. And he's just like, baby, you got real ugly. And there's not even a moment of him being like, oh, I failed, I let this happen.
Yeah, I let you down.
He's just like, when she's
it's quips. And again, that's something that's very similar to something like Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, Colonel Guile, have you lost your mind? No, you've lost your balls.
Yeah.
You're like, mate, you're chatting shit to the UN ambassador, but no one cares.
Yeah.
And
And
because
this
that's not the point. Everyone's got a quip. It's Arnie.
Yeah.
Arnie films do that,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Commando. You know, it's just like, what happened
Remember
to
when I said
Sully?
I'd kill
let
you
him
last?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a cartoon as well. It's a live-action cartoon that is also a homage to Ray Harryhausen films.
Yeah, Ray Harryhausen,
like Clash
yeah.
of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, the skeleton warriors
Stop-motion
in this
skeletons.
is ridiculous, yeah.
What's hilarious is it's that with Sam Raimi
Hmm.
because in Jason and the Argonauts, the skeletons are pretty much straightforward skeletons. They come up, they're stop motion. I don't think they have any dialogue usually, do they?
No, they don't have any dialogue.
In this, the skeletons are like working class Muppets.
Yeah, they
and
are,
they're
yeah.
like one of them, they dig him up right when they're raising the army of the dead. They dig him up and they're like, welcome back to the land of the living. Now grab a shovel.
Yeah.
And like when they reveal evil Sheila, and you just hit. My ex used to find this the funniest line in the whole film.
Right.
She lifts her veil up and she goes, I'm bad, but I feel good. And when she lifts up the veil, you hear all these like wolf whistles from the skeletons.
Yeah.
And one skeleton in the background just goes, oh, there's a sight for sore bones. But my ex found that the funniest line in the whole film.
Nice.
There's a bit where one of the skeletons, this is when the main battle's happening, they've breached the castle walls, and this skeleton's had its lower half blown off, so it's just the rib cage, the skull, and the arms.
Yeah.
And it's crawling along the floor with a fucking knife in its teeth.
Yeah.
A knife in its teeth, and Bruce Campbell does that thing where he cuts a rope to pull himself up.
Yeah.
And this thing's crawling, it's going, gonna get you. And he takes the knife out, and it's just about to swing. He goes up, the skeleton looks up, and it's like, do you know that video of the dramatic gopher that turns around and the camera zooms in? It does that shot of the skeleton going, ah!
Yeah.
And it's just a puppet.
Yeah.
When they kill the villain, and this is what I mean by cartoon, when the villain realises he's about to die, he doesn't realise he's standing on a catapult, does he?
No.
And he's been melted, so he is a skeleton himself at this point.
Yeah.
And Ash is laying on the floor, the fuse is burning up, and he's got the book, and he's like, I've got the Necronomicon, and I will kill everyone, blah, blah, blah. And Ash just goes, buckle up, Buster, or something like that.
Right.
Cuts the guy's arm off, so he drops the book, cuts the rope. Now, the rope, if you cut the rope on a catapult, it immediately goes spring, right? No, this, Looney Tunes style, he cuts it, we cut to a shot of the bad guy who goes, what? And his eyes pop out of his head, the top of his skull lifts up, and steam comes out of his head, and it does like a steam whistle noise, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And then he springs. That is the equivalent of when Wile E. Coyote runs over a cliff and doesn't realise gravity exists until he looks down.
Yeah. Yep. And then he holds up the sign, help, and then he drops.
Yeah, the guy might as well have done that. And
Yeah.
I totally get that is a very specific taste. I understand that people would see that and go, that's stupid, it's immature, and it is immature. It probably is.
This film is not... I wouldn't classify it as an intelligent movie. It's certainly not a drama.
No.
But then it's not what it's trying to be either.
No.
You know, if this was The Godfather 4, you'd be like, what the fuck have you done to The Godfather?
And whilst I don't...
But it's not, is it?
No.
It is a living cartoon.
Yeah. And whilst, yes, something like White Chicks or Scary Movie or Epic Movie, we had a lot of films like that in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Whilst they are also stupid, the reason they feel just a little stupider is A, the lack of skill from the director, and B, Army of Darkness always feels like it's drawing from classic cinema.
Well, it's drawing from classic takes on a lot of things. Cinema, it's got a very Halloween vibe to it to begin with. Rather than, no, I don't mean Halloween the movie, I mean just as a theme. Like, you know, an annual year-round theme.
Yeah.
Whereas Scary Movie largely doesn't work unless you've seen the films it's referencing. Epic Movie doesn't work unless you know the films it's referencing.
Yeah.
White Chicks doesn't work.
Oh, at a certain point in the 2000s, I just made a personal rule to myself that if a trailer began with the line from 3 of the producers who bought you Scary Movie, I wasn't going to watch the film.
Yep.
Because it always meant that it was a shit film.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, basically this at the very least with Army of Darkness, you don't need to have seen, say, Ghostbusters to understand the jokes in it.
Yeah. You don't even need to have seen Evil Dead 2.
You don't even need to have seen Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
Though that does help.
I hadn't. When I saw this the first time,
Yeah.
I'd never seen a stop-motion skeleton in my life.
No.
I was like, oh, what's that? That's weird how they've done that.
But imagine watching Scary Movie, having not seen Scream, having not seen any horror films.
Yeah.
You'd be like, why is this happening now? Why is this funny? And we already mentioned, I think, in a previous episode, the fact that they do the what joke from the
10 years too late.
10 years too late. And now, like, imagine being 15 now, watching Scary Movie, and they're all going, what You'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Not a clue.
Yeah. The jokes age out because they're referencing pop culture of the time.
Yep, that's another big difference I have between, say, Bill and Ted and Wayne's World. Bill and Ted does not, apart from some of the band names that they reference, like we need Eddie Van Halen for our band, you know, but the idea of making your own band is kind of timeless, like from that point onwards. Wayne's World, everything in Wayne's World is referencing pop culture of the time.
At that time, yeah.
So Wayne's World has both series have aged. Both of those films, the first Bill and Ted and the first Wayne's World,
worst.
But one's aged much worse because it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you know the pop culture of the time, Wayne's World makes no sense.
So I actually rewatched. I don't know what came over me, but I actually watched Scary Movie 2 not that long ago.
Oh, right, okay.
And there's a goddamn Monica Lewinsky jizz on the dress joke.
Right.
And I was like, no one today would go. I had to stop and think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, it's Monica Lewinsky, right?
Yeah.
That was 1996, I think it was, that happened.
I'm trying to think of how many comedies that are made today will be even in any way discernible as to what the fuck they're on about in 20, 30 years' time.
To be fair, very few, because the truth is, comedy's a dead genre at the minute.
Yeah, it is.
Normal comedy, like just straight comedy, not superhero comedies and stuff like that. I mean, actual something like Dodgeball.
Yeah.
They're not making them at the minute because they're not selling, apparently.
Well, they're not making them, so how can they sell?
Well, that's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, even then, like when they do straight comedies,
build it, they will come.
Yeah, but when you look at straight comedies, like they're still being produced for TV more so than film. Something like SNL, etc. But even something like SNL, which has been going forever and
hasn't been funny in about 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, why does it? But that's like a general consensus. It's hasn't been funny for about 20 years.
But regardless of that, the jokes they're telling are like, here we have Trump.
Yeah.
Here we have this. And it's like, mate, in 20 years' time, no one's going to know what the fuck you're talking about.
Fair enough with Saturday Night Live, because that's always been the gimmick of Saturday Night Live. That is what the show is.
Yeah, but every single comedy I've seen recently is that.
Yeah, and this is the problem. Like, if you went back to Saturday Night Live from its inception, they're all jokes of the day. It's why Saturday Night Live doesn't hold up to rewatchers.
Yep.
But you are right. Right, I'm gonna take Brooklyn Nine-Nine at the mix. I've been rewatching Brooklyn Nine-Nine because very sadly we lost Andre Braugher in 2023.
Oh man, that's
it was a real loss. That was, because the dude was a great fucking actor.
Him and Matthew Perry in the same year.
Oh, I know.
Heartbreaking, man.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine's last season will not age well.
No,
because it's all topical humour about the COVID-19 pandemic and the Black Lives Matter riots.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying they were not serious topics. They were both very, very incredibly serious topics. The second one is an example of how fucking broken the system is.
Yeah.
That should not be being dealt with in a silly sitcom that literally usually has episodes where it's like people competing to be called greatest human / genius.
Yeah.
Like, that is the wrong show to be dealing with a topic that heavy.
Well, it's like Friends. Apart from a couple of visual nods in terms of costume where they're wearing FDNY t-shirts, they didn't reference 9/11.
No.
Even though they were on the air during 9/11.
Yeah.
It was because how is Friends gonna deal with 9/11 without
Exactly.
trashing itself?
We
It's too deep a topic for that particular genre.
Now, obviously, we are nowhere near, not even close. We are orders of magnitude beneath something like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes, of course.
But when we were creating Haunted the audio drama, that first season was written, recorded, and aired during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And me and Benton sat early on and decided, you know what? In the world of Haunted, that never happened.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we are not the right show to deal with that. Yeah. We're not going to do episodes about how badly the government have bungled the handling of it.
Well, the other thing as well is your show deals with, in several cases, conspiracies. And the last thing you need is to be making a show that basically... If it's like, oh, well, this show's about conspiracies. They're talking about COVID-19, therefore they agree that COVID-19 was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And it's like that, like, you don't want to... Whether or not you agree with that as an audience member, like, it's not... If you're trying to make an easily accessible horror fiction show, you don't need to be dealing with whether or not COVID-19 was real or not.
No. And I remember saying to Benton when Brooklyn Nine-Nine finished, I said, this last season... Give it 10 years and get someone to watch it, which, you know, Friends has been done 20 goddamn years and people still, it's one of the most streamed shows there is.
Yep.
People love Friends still.
Yep.
I said, you know, go back in 10 years and watch that last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Most of Brooklyn Nine-Nine will hold.
And people will be like...
That one won't.
People will be like, why is everyone wearing masks? Why are certain characters only on TV screens? So, like, Hitchcock, because he was vulnerable, he's not physically in the season.
Right.
Until, I think, the very last episode, I think.
Something like that.
For most of the season, he's on an iPad.
Right.
That's going to feel so weird.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yep.
It is what it is. Fair enough. I'm not saying anyone was right or wrong. It was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Some people decided to deal with it in their shows. I chose to bury my head in the sand and be like, no, we're not dealing with it. Because people don't want it as well. People watch media for escapism 99% of the time. I'm not watching Army of Darkness because I want a realistic lesson on medieval England.
Yeah.
The least medieval-looking England you've ever seen, by the way, shot in the desert in California.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
It's like, I don't think we have landscapes like this in.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the two different endings to this film.
Yeah.
So the American ending is a slightly more hopeful, positive ending, where Ash gets back to his own time in a
reshoot,
supermarket. Yeah. But that is the canon ending now because of Ash vs. Evil Dead. He gets back to S-Mart and he's showing off about how he killed all these demons. No one believes him. And then a Deadite turns up and he has a little shootout with her and kills her. The original ending Sam Raimi wanted, and the ending that is still on my DVD copy of this film, they beat the Deadites, blah, 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 and the old wise Gandalf-type man makes Ash a potion that will allow him to get back to his own time. Every drop causes him to sleep for 100 years, and he's got to take 6 drops, I think it is, because he's 600 years in the past. And he is in the cave taking them, and he miscounts because he gets distracted by some shifting rock, and he takes 7 drops. There's a big time skip thing, which that's kind of a cool way of doing it, where the camera's just rotating round, and every time it comes round, the car has got more and more cobwebs on it.
Yeah.
And he gets out into the sunlight, and it's the most interesting post-apocalypse I've ever seen, because it's as if someone's crushed all the countries into one. The Statue of Liberty's there, the Eiffel Tower's there, Big Ben's there, I'm pretty sure the Pyramids of Giza are there.
Yeah.
And he's just looking out over this hellscape where all these things are, and he just drops to his knees and screams, I slept too long!
Yeah. No, it's the thing. As an ending, that's the funnier ending.
Yes.
But I can understand why the studio didn't like it, because how the fuck do you sequelize that?
Exactly. Well, bad luck for them. The film didn't make any money.
No, that's true. But I assume that they, at the time, assumed
wanted sequels, yeah.
Yeah, and they were like, well, how are we doing a sequel if he's in the post-apocalypse and everything's destroyed.
Yeah, you either can't do it, or if you could do it, it's going to be expensive as hell.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to make all these post-apocalypse sets.
Yeah. So the American ending is, to be fair, the American ending is quite good, and it actually has one of the quotable lines that is missing in
Hail to the king.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, hail to the king, baby.
Yeah, that, yeah. That's
Give me some
not
sugar, baby.
That's not in the original ending, because
No.
that has no relevance in that ending.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is some positives. I don't mind the American ending, but I can. You said ironically, Ash vs Evil Dead basically ends
Similar to Army of Darkness, yeah.
Yeah, the original Army of Darkness
because it got
ending.
cancelled.
Yeah.
It ends on a cliffhanger where he wakes up in a post-apocalypse again, but this time it's like a Mad Max post-apocalypse.
Right.
But yeah, because it got cancelled.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some irony there that, basically you went, fine, we'll go with the American ending.
Yeah.
And it still ends up with him fucked up in the future.
Oh.
Oh, that is funny.
But yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say about this film. I highly recommend it to any film fans, people just looking to have a good time. You want to have a few drinks, it's a great movie to be drunk and watch.
If you're looking for how to do interesting visual effects cheaply, and by that I don't mean like that they're dirt cheap, but in a way, like a lot of modern filmmaking, we over-rely on green screen, we over-rely on CGI, but as independent filmmakers, we tend not to have very good access to those anyway, certainly not at high quality level.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out different ways to achieve the same results. Army of Darkness, because it is all practical, all in camera, has to find other ways to achieve what we would now do so easily with CGI.
Yeah.
So if you're an independent filmmaker, it's well worth watching to see what you could do with those, with those cheats, essentially. We call them cheats now. They were just how you did effects.
Yeah.
But because we're so used to not using these, and use them, manipulate them for your own movies, But there's ways and means. I still want to watch this movie a third time because I really think I'll enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah.
The
It's
third
just
viewing.
fun.
Yeah.
And how many things in life these days are just fun?
Yeah, not many.
But yeah. So I think that's it. Thank you for everyone for listening. As always, we appreciate it. Please like, share, rate, subscribe, etc. All of the things that you get asked to do on every podcast that you listen to. Sorry to be just like everyone else, but that's how we grow the show.
That's the name of the game.
Please feel free to also listen to our back catalogue of episodes, or if you want something a little bit different, you can head over and listen to VGMP, the Video Game Movie Podcast. If you search VGMP, it should come up on all good podcasting apps. That is a show also hosted by myself and Rory, a bit more comedic, that show, where we discuss video game movies. Because believe it or not, I know you're not going to believe this, they're not all bad.
No.
Most of them are. Most of them are.
We don't know that
But
most of them
not
are.
all. Most of the ones we've done so far
Yeah, because
are bad.
There's over 500 and we've done around 60 to 70.
Right.
Yeah,
But there are some hidden gems.
there are some very good hidden gems.
If you're also interested in listening to Haunted, the audio drama that we referenced on this show, that is our full cast audio drama that I run with Benton, my business partner. And it is sort of a Doctor Who meets X-Files horror adventure comedy series with a long-running storyline coupled with Monster of the Week episodes, just like how you remember the X-Files. We are currently, by the time this releases, we've finished season 2. I think we'll have done our summer specials, or we'll have done one of them, I think. And we are basically in production on season 3. It's very exciting. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You guys rock, and we will see you next time on Second Take Cinema.